Today we're driving the 2023 Dodge Hornet GT Plus all-wheel drive. This is Dodge's latest offering in the compact crossover segment. They're kind of marketing it as a performance crossover, maybe similar to the likes of the CX-30 Turbo, the Hyundai Kona. So let's see how this thing stacks up against some of the competitors today. As many of you know, it's basically an Alfa Romeo Tonale underneath. This GT Plus all-wheel drive has a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. It makes 268 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. This has the Blacktop package, so it's got some blacked out accents, mirror caps, badges, things like that. And it has the track package. Not sure who's going to be tracking their Dodge Hornet, but you have Brembo brakes, 20-inch wheels on Michelin Pilot Sport All-Season 4 tires, 235/40 R20s, and adjustable Koni dampers. Electronically adjustable, of course. Starting price on the Hornet is about $32,000. This car as spec'd is about $44,000. The Tonale starts at $45,000 and comes as a plug-in hybrid, and you can get the Dodge Hornet RT as a plug-in hybrid as well. It makes a little bit more power, has some EV driving range, and drives a little bit differently. I haven't spent much time in the plug-in hybrid car, so I can't really talk about that too much, but let's hop inside this GT Plus and take a look at this interior. We'll walk around this and then we'll take it for a drive, give you guys some thoughts on what it's been like to live with this week. Startup chime is very loud, so we're going to put our seatbelt on as quickly as possible. As you can see, this interior is very Alfa Romeo, just with a few Dodge badges slapped on. We've got 2 Dodge slashes on the headrest. Nice looking seats. No ventilated seat option, but they seem to breathe pretty well. We have a heated seat and a heated steering wheel. Nice leather, nice materials. I mean, this basically being an Alfa Romeo interior means it's quite a nice interior. High quality switchgear. I love the feel of everything, from the way the shifter has a nice resistance to it, to the button presses. Everything has a solidity to it that is lacking in a lot of other Dodge products, to be honest. Infotainment is a little bit sluggish for 2023, but CarPlay, Android Auto, both work quick enough. The only thing is the icons are very small in this widescreen display, so you might be struggling a little bit to see things. We have a 14-speaker Harman Kardon sound system in this Dodge Hornet. We'll test that out a little bit later. We've got a few different gauge cluster views here. We can see our map, a performance display, no head-up display or anything like that. Again, kind of sluggish here, and for some reason, when you start up the vehicle, you get a European speed limit sign that is just, it seems to be a random number. It was 42 for a while, then it was 13, now it's 15. Doesn't seem to correlate with anything. Not sure what that means. If you guys know, be sure to chime in the comments. We get adaptive cruise control, lane centering, which works quite well. A sport mode. You do have to press that button for quite a while for it to engage. And it doesn't really change a whole lot. Stiffens the suspension up, sharpens throttle response slightly. Gauge cluster remains mostly the same. Very simple, easy to use ergonomics in this Dodge Hornet. No complaints there about all the buttons, physical controls, auto up-down windows on all 4 corners, 3 seat memory settings. Okay, let's take a look in the back seat here. Good amount of ride height to this Dodge Hornet as well. You gotta watch out for this piece right here. It'll slap you right in the face. Kind of a tall back seat, easy to get into. I'm 5'10". I have plenty of legroom back here, but honestly, I have plenty of legroom in most cars. I have about maybe 1.5 inches above my head. Yeah, very high quality feeling interior. Little pass through here. Fold down these seats. A couple USB ports, vents. Yeah, all very nice. I like the styling of the door handles. No spare tire, unfortunately. Would like to see that standard. I'm sure it's an option. There's plenty of room down there for one, but you do get pretty skinny sidewalls. A little bit of cargo space back here, similar to something that we'd see in like the Mazda CX-30. It's kind of narrow, but folding the seats down, you should be able to fit a decent amount of stuff back there. You have to kind of long press all the buttons in this Dodge Hornet, including the trunk button. Another view of those Brembo brakes. You can see on the brake pad, they say Mopar brake pads. Let's pop the hood, take a look at this Hurricane 4-cylinder. Hood struts, that's nice to see. Rated for 21 miles to the gallon in the city, 29 on the highway. Engine makes good power, pulls well. It's maybe a little bit unrefined feeling when pushed hard, but for the most part, it seems to be a pretty good powertrain to drive. Mated with a 9-speed automatic transmission. It's a little bit jerky, but we'll talk about that more on the road. I do like the driving position in this Hornet. I get nice and low in the seat. Steering wheel tilts and telescopes, and there's plenty of adjustment there. I appreciate the use of physical controls for our climate adjustments. Change fan speed, defrost, auto settings, all super easy and user-friendly. Parking brake is really nicely placed right next to the shifter. Got your volume controls right here too. And if you want to turn on and off auto stop start, you can at the press of a button right there under the stop start switch, which is great. A little bit of storage down there. Not the tallest space here, but it should work for a smaller water bottle. All the switches in here feel quite nice. You even have a physical control for your display dimmer at night. Headlights perform awesome too in the dark. All right, let's take this Dodge Hornet for a drive and see how it feels on the road. There's a peek at your reverse camera. No physical button for our parking cameras, but you can set that as a favorite in your shortcuts. So if you're pulling up to a parking space, you can have that come on. I like the shape and feel of the steering wheel too. A little bit of perforated leather there. Flat bottom. You kind of have to think of this Hornet and the Tonale as the crossover version of the Giulia. A little bit taller, maybe not as nice to drive, but you get that SUV crossover form factor, which is highly desirable these days, and a little bit more ground clearance as well as all-wheel drive. We are missing paddle shifters behind the steering wheel, and it's interesting because there's definitely space for them because the turn signals, the wiper controls, everything is pushed back to accommodate room for the paddle shifters, but you only get paddle shifters on the Hornet RT, the plug-in hybrid, and the Alfa Romeo Tonale, which is a plug-in hybrid. Pretty good visibility too. A little bit limited out of that rear view mirror with all three headrests up, but I haven't had too many issues this week. Mirrors are nice and wide angle. Engine stop start is a little bit jerky off the line. Engine comes on and you just kind of have this lurch, and if you add any throttle before the engine kicks on, it's actually pretty abrupt. So I've mostly been driving with that off. Let's try sport mode. Steering weight's up. We have about a 5,300 RPM red line with this 4-cylinder. Very low. I don't know the last car I drove that had a 5,300 RPM red line. I think it might have been a diesel. Steering feels nice though, nice and sharp. Power is pretty good. This 9-speed does shift quite fast. Again, again, I would really like some paddle shifters behind the wheel. You can really feel the suspension stiffen up in sport mode with these Koni dampers. You do get some control over your gears down here. You just have to use the shifter down here by your hand. It is the proper direction. Forward to downshift, back to upshift. I've done a lot of highway miles in this Dodge Hornet this week, and adaptive cruise control works great. You can set your following distance very easily, and whatever you set your following distance to, it'll remember that and use that until you change it next time, even if you cycle the car off and on. Lane centering works quite well too, goes for a long time. It almost feels like a highway assist mode. Everything's very easy to enable, disable right here on the steering wheel. Physical controls, nicely differentiated. I really like the switchgear on the steering wheel here, it feels great. 9-speed auto is kind of interesting. It doesn't actually ever shift into 9th gear. It acts entirely like an 8-speed. Even on the highway, 70, 80 miles an hour, cruising uphill, downhill, on flat surfaces, it never has shifted into 9th gear for me this week. I have to manually shift it into 9th gear if I want 9th. Kind of an interesting note. A little bit rough over bumps, especially with these 40 series sidewalls on these 20-inch wheels. I would probably prefer an 18 or a 19-inch wheel on a car like this. 20s are just too big, and Michelin does not make the quietest tire, so you combine that. It's a bit of a rough ride and a bit loud over bumps. Handles well though, and steering is excellent for a crossover. Let's go back into sport mode. Yeah, really good chassis here. Bit of safe understeer at the limit. I can hear some clicking away from the stability control system. Look at that beautiful Volkswagen Rabbit. That's awesome. Not a lot of personality to this engine, and it is kind of strange that it has such a low red line, but hopefully that means that it's just understressed. If you want to save some money, and you could do without the track package and the blacktop package and a couple other options, you can get into one of these for the mid-30s, and I think for that money, this is a pretty fun option with a really nice quality interior, good features. I mean, at the end of the day, it's an Alfa Romeo Tonale for about $10,000 less if you go easy on options. The track package on this car is a $3,000 option, and I'm not really sure it makes sense on a car like this. The 20-inch wheels don't do this car a lot of favors, and I don't think you really need a set of Brembo brakes on something like this either. Otherwise, though, I do like the way this car drives. It feels very European. It handles well. It has some character to it, which is definitely missing in the segment. On cold starts, this has a bit of a burbly idle, which is kind of cool, but it's only present on cold starts. A few little shakes and rattles here, but for the most part, this interior feels pretty well bolted together. I do really like the usability of this interior space. Lots of physical buttons and controls. Aside from the infotainment being a little bit laggy and buggy occasionally, it seems to do the job better than most. Let's test out this Harman Kardon 14-speaker sound system. for the money, this is a pretty good audio system. It kind of depends on what you're looking for in a car like this. It feels sporty. It feels more performance-oriented. If you want something that's a bit more comfortable, has better NVH, you should probably look elsewhere. But if you want something that's a little bit more fizzy and exciting than your average crossover, the Dodge Hornet is a pretty good option, I think. I wouldn't necessarily compare it to the likes of a Hyundai Kona N. It's just really hard to beat that fun factor in the market today. But Hyundai Kona N isn't going to be around for much longer. And if you want to cross over with some steering feel, a bit of Italian flavor, you don't want to go out and spend $45,000 plus for an Alfa Romeo Tonale, this is the next best thing. Hopefully we'll get a chance to test out a Dodge Hornet RT or an Alfa Romeo Tonale at some point, but until then, we'll see you guys in the next video. Take it easy. For example, now we have a 43 up there. I don't know what that means. Is it our average speed? Who knows? I even Googled it. I even looked it up on forums, and no one could really give a definitive answer. Bit of a taste of how this rides over bumps. Oh, now it says 31. Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more refinement out of this car in terms of smoothness and low-speed drivability, but maybe with some tuning, a second generation, we might see some improvements with that. We'll see.